They say the best revenge is served cold. I served mine before the coffee got cold. At 9:47 a.m. this morning, I was standing in front of 20 millionaires, about to change my life forever. By 6 p.m. tonight, I was sipping wine in my new corner office while my former boss watched his empire crumble on live television. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how one presentation destroyed a man who thought he owned me. My name is Eve Harris. I'm 36 years old, mother to two amazing kids, and until this morning, I was the most foolishly loyal employee in corporate history. The boardroom smelled like expensive cologne and even more expensive ambition. 20 faces stared at me from around the mahogany table, faces that belonged to people who owned private jets in small countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice cutting through the morning silence like silk. What I'm about to show you will make us all very, very rich. But something felt wrong. In the corner of the room, my boss David Westfield sat with his golden boy Jake Morrison. David's jaw was clenched tight, and that vein on his forehead, the one that appeared when he was about to explode, was already throbbing. 7 years. 7 long years I had poured my soul into this company. 7 years of missing my daughter Emma's bedtime stories and my son Oliver's football matches. 7 years of 16-hour days and cold dinners and believing that loyalty meant something. I was about to learn the most expensive lesson of my life. The Asian Pacific Market Initiative, I continued, clicking to my first slide, represents the largest untapped opportunity in international trade today. Mrs. Yamamoto from Tokyo leaned forward, her diamond earrings catching the light. How large are we talking? $400 million in the first year alone. A murmur of excitement rippled through the room. Mr. Singh from Mumbai was taking notes. The German delegation was whispering among themselves. Even the notoriously tough crowd from Switzerland looked impressed. This was my moment, my masterpiece. 3 years of research, 6 months of building relationships, countless sleepless nights perfecting every detail. David's face was getting redder by the minute. The key insight, I said, warming to my subject, is that everyone else is looking at Asia as separate markets? But if you connect them through a unified distribution network no, UGH. The word exploded through the room like a gunshot. Every head turned toward David, my blood turned to ice water. I'm sorry, everyone, David said, standing up with that politician's smile he saved for clients. But I need to stop this before we waste any more of your valuable time, Mrs. Yamamoto frowned. Is there a problem, Mr. Westfield? David walked toward me, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Each step felt like a nail in my coffin. The problem, he said, his voice dripping with false regret, is that Miss Harris is presenting someone else's work as her own. The room went dead silent. My world tilted sideways. What? Whispered Mr. Rodriguez from Brazil. This brilliant strategy, all this research, the entire concept, it comes from my top strategist, Jake Morrison. David gestured toward Jake, who was now standing with a grin spreading across his face like oil on water. That's not true, I said, but my voice came out as barely a whisper. Miss Harris is an excellent presenter, David continued, talking over me like I was invisible. But the real genius behind this operation is Jake. He's been developing this concept for over a year. Jake stepped forward, straightening his tie. Thanks for the introduction, boss. I know Eve gets excited about presenting, but she sometimes forgets to mention her sources. The humiliation hit me like a physical blow. I felt my face burning, my hands shaking, my 7 years of dedication crumbling into dust. Perhaps, said Mrs. Chun from Hong Kong, looking uncomfortable, we should clarify the ownership of this proposal. Absolutely, David said. Jake, why don't you take over and explain the technical details to our guests? This was a nightmare. A living, breathing nightmare playing out in front of the most important investors in the world. But then something interesting happened. Instead of crumbling, instead of crying, instead of begging for fairness, I smiled. A slow, dangerous smile that made David take a step backward. You know what, David, I said, my voice suddenly calm as glass. You're absolutely right. The room held its breath. Jake should get full credit for this idea. In fact, Jake should handle everything from here on out. I closed my laptop with a soft click that echoed like thunder. I wouldn't want to take credit for someone else's brilliant work. Jake's grin got wider. David looked relieved. The investors looked confused. Jake, I said sweetly, I'm sure you remember the name of our primary contact at Beijing Distribution Networks. Jake's grin flickered. Well, and the authorization. Codes for the European shipping agreements. The grin was fading fast. The banking details for the Swiss investment fund. Jake's face went pale. The legal framework contracts that I spent 6 months negotiating with my personal law firm. David was staring at me now, and I could see the first hint of panic in his eyes. All of those details, I continued, picking up my briefcase, are stored in my personal files. Under my name, with my security codes, linked to my private business. Accounts! The silence in the room was deafening. Mrs. Yamamoto spoke first. Are you saying that the actual business infrastructure belongs to you personally? I'm saying that Jake is about to discover how much he doesn't know about his own brilliant idea. I walked toward the door but stopped with my hand on the handle. Oh, and Jake, the patents for the distribution software. Filed under my name last month? The trademark applications? Also mine. Have fun explaining that to everyone. I opened the door and paused. David, you always said I was too loyal for my own good. Thank you for finally setting me free. I walked out, leaving behind 20 confused millionaires, one terrified golden boy, and one man whose life was about to become a living hell. The elevator ride down felt like flying. But I wasn't done, not even close. By the time I reached my car, I was already dialing. Michael Chun, it's Eve Harris. Are you still interested in breaking into the Asian market? Michael Chun, CEO of Horizon Dynamics and David's biggest competitor, laughed. Eve, I was just thinking about you. Word is Westfield is about to announce something big in Asia. Not anymore. Can you meet me in an hour? For you? I'll clear my whole day. While driving to Michael's office, I made 3 more calls. First, to my husband Tom. Honey, remember how I said I might have to make some big changes at work? Did something happen? David just gave away 7 years of my work to Jake Morrison in front of 20 investors. That bastard. What are you going to do? I'm going to destroy him, professionally and completely. Good. Do you need me to pick up the kids? Yes, Mommy might be late tonight, but it's going to be worth it. Second call, my lawyer, Patricia Wong. Patricia, it's Eve. I need you to pull all the contracts I've signed with Westfield. I think David just made a very expensive mistake. What happened? He just claimed that someone else created my work. In front of witnesses. I need to know exactly what belongs to me and what belongs to the company. I'll have everything ready in 2 hours. Third call, my contact at the Financial Tribune. Sarah, it's Eve Harris. Remember how you said you'd love an inside story about corporate betrayal? Today's your lucky day. Michael's office was everything David's wasn't: modern, efficient, and run by someone who actually respected talent. So, Michael said, leaning back in his leather chair, David Westfield just committed corporate suicide? Spectacularly. In front of the biggest investors in the world. And you own all the actual infrastructure for the deal? Every contact, every contract, every piece of software, every legal agreement. I've been building this for 3 years. Using my personal resources, Michael whistled low. That's worth ... 400 million in year 1. Probably double that by year 3. What do you want, Eve? I want you to make those investors a better offer. 30% better returns. Faster implementation, and a team that actually knows what they're talking about. And in exchange, I want a partnership. Not a job, a partnership. 40% equity in the Asian division. Michael's eyebrows shot up. That's a big ask. I'm bringing you a $400 million deal on a silver platter.
Plus,
I'll personally guarantee the first year's profits. Done.
he extended his hand. Welcome to Horizon Dynamics, partner.
While Michael's legal team prepared the contracts, I made another call. Mrs. Yamamoto, this is Eve Harris. I believe you were interested in the Asian Pacific Market Initiative this morning. Ms. Harris, Yes, but the presentation was confusing. The young man seemed to know very little about the technical details. What if I told you that I could offer you the same opportunity, but with better terms and someone who actually understands every aspect of the deal? I would be very interested to hear more. Are you free this afternoon? By 3 p.m. I was back in a boardroom, but this time I was the one in control. 18 of the 20 investors had agreed to meet with Michael and me. Only 2 had stayed with David, and I suspected they were just being polite. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, this morning you saw a presentation about the Asian Pacific Market Initiative. What you didn't see was the real deal. For the next 2 hours, I laid out the complete plan, every detail, every contact.
Every
Projection. Every piece of the puzzle that Jake couldn't possibly know because I had created it all myself. Mrs. Yamamoto was the first to sign. Miss Harris, this is the kind of thorough planning I expect. Where do I sign? Mr. Singh was next. Then the German delegation. Then the Swiss group. By 5:30 p.m., we had commitments for $380 million. My phone started ringing at 5:45. Eve, it's David. What the hell is going on? The investors are all pulling out. That's terrible news, David. What happened? Someone leaked our entire presentation to Horizon Dynamics. Maybe you should ask Jake. He's the one who created it, right? Silence. Eve. We need to talk. I don't think we do, David. You made it very clear this morning that Jake is your go-to person for this deal. This isn't a game. The company could go under. Then I guess you'd better hope Jake knows what he's doing. I hung up. At 6 p.m., my phone rang again. Eve, it's Jake. Please, you have to help me. I don't know anything about the Asian markets. That's strange, Jake. This morning you seemed very confident about your brilliant idea. You know I didn't create any of this. David made me do it. Made you do what? Take credit for someone else's work? In front of 20 investors? I was just following orders. Jake, you're 32 years old. Stop acting like a child. The investors are asking technical questions I can't answer. David is furious. He's talking about firing me. Sounds like you're getting exactly what you deserve. Eve, please. The evening news at 7 p.m. led with our story. In a shocking turn of events, Westfield Corporation has lost what industry experts are calling the deal of the decade. Sources close to the situation report that internal confusion about project ownership led to a complete breakdown in investor confidence. The reporter continued. Meanwhile, Horizon Dynamics has announced the largest partnership in their company's history, with the same group of investors who walked away from Westfield earlier today. Tom was waiting for me when I got home at 8 p.m., holding a glass of champagne. So, he said, grinning, how was your day, dear? I destroyed my boss, stole his biggest deal, and became a multimillionaire.
How was yours? I made dinner. It's getting cold.
Let it get cold. We're celebrating. The kids were already asleep, but I peeked into their rooms anyway. Emma was clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. Oliver had fallen asleep with a book on his chest. For 7 years I had missed moments like this. For 7 years I had told myself it was worth it. That I was building something important, that loyalty and hard work would pay off. David had taught me that loyalty is a one-way street. And today I had finally learned to drive in the other direction. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Eve, the Financial Tribune wants an exclusive interview tomorrow. Also, 3 other companies have called asking about your availability. You're officially in demand. I smiled and turned off my phone. The next morning brought more good news. Eve Harris speaking. Miss Harris, this is Jennifer Walsh from Pacific Global Investments. We've been following your work for some time. We'd like to discuss a consulting contract. I appreciate the interest, Jennifer, but I'm now a partner at Horizon Dynamics. We're prepared to offer $5 million annually. For what? To help us identify other market opportunities like the Asian Initiative. We believe you have a talent for seeing what others miss. I'm flattered, but I'm exactly where I want to be. By noon, I had received 6 more job offers, including one from a company that offered to make me CEO at 1 p.m. My assistant at Horizon knocked on my new office. Door. Eve, David Westfield is here to see you. Send him in. David looked like he hadn't slept in days. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his hair was messy, and those confident eyes I remembered were now bloodshot and desperate. Nice office, he said, looking around at my corner suite with its view of the city. Thank you. Michael believes in rewarding talent. The board fired me this morning. I said nothing. Jake had a complete breakdown yesterday. He's in the hospital. Anxiety attack. I'm sorry to hear that. No, you're not. You're right, I'm not. David sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. I came to ask you something. I'm listening. Was it worth it, destroying everything I built? David, you didn't build anything. You managed other people who built things. There's a difference. I gave you opportunities. You gave me work, lots and lots of work. In exchange for a salary that was half what I was worth. You could have asked for a raise. I did, 3 times. You told me to be patient. The company was growing. The company was growing because of people like me. People who worked 16-hour days and sacrificed their families and believed that if they just worked hard enough, someday they'd be recognized. David stared at his hands. I made mistakes. You made choices. And yesterday, you chose to humiliate me in front of the most important investors in the world rather than give me credit for my own work. I was jealous. The admission hung in the air between us. I was jealous of how much they liked you. How impressed they were. I built that company from nothing, and in 5 minutes you had them eating out of your hand. So you decided to destroy me. I decided to remind everyone who was in charge. How did that work out for you? David looked up at me and I saw something I'd never seen before: defeat. The company is filing for bankruptcy next week. 37 employees are losing their jobs. My wife left me yesterday. My house is in foreclosure. David. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm asking for forgiveness. Forgiveness? Jake tried to kill himself last night. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Pills. His roommate found him just in time. He left a note saying he couldn't live with what he'd done to you. I felt sick. David. I'm not blaming you. This is all my fault. Every bit of it. But Jake is just a stupid kid who got caught up in my insecurity. Why are you telling me this? Because I wanted you to know that your revenge worked. Completely. And I wanted to ask you to visit him in the hospital. He keeps asking for you. I stared at David for a long moment, thinking about Jake, thinking about choices and consequences, thinking about the price of revenge. I'll think about it. Thank you. David stood up and walked to the door. Then he stopped. Eve? Yes? You were the best employee I ever had. And the best person. I'm sorry I forgot that. I know. After he left, I sat alone in my office for a long time, looking out at the city. My phone was ringing constantly, reporters, investors, headhunters, but I ignored them all. At 3 p.m. I drove to St. Mary's Hospital. Jake was in a private room on the 4th floor, staring out the window. He looked younger than his 32 years, fragile and broken.
Eve? His voice was barely a whisper. Hello, Jake.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know. I never wanted to hurt you. David said it would just be for one presentation. He said the investors wouldn't understand if they knew a woman had created the idea. David said a lot of things. I know that's not an excuse. I was weak. I was scared of losing my job. And now you've lost everything. Jake started crying. I know, and I deserve it. But Eve, I never meant for it to go this far. I sat down in the chair next to his bed. Jake, what you did was wrong. It was cowardly and dishonest and hurtful, but it wasn't worth dying over. Yes, it was. I destroyed your life. No, you didn't. You destroyed my relationship with David. You made me realize that I was wasting my talent on people who didn't value it. In a strange way, you set me free. Jake looked at me with surprise. But your revenge... My revenge was professional. Jake, I took back what was mine. I didn't try to destroy you personally. But the company, David, my career, those were consequences of your choices. And David's choices. Not my revenge. I don't understand the difference. The difference is that I never wanted to hurt you as a person. I wanted justice for my work. There's a distinction. We sat in silence for several minutes. Jake, what you did was wrong. But trying to kill yourself doesn't fix anything. It just creates more pain for the people who care about you. Nobody cares about me. Your roommate cares. Your family cares. Even David, in his twisted way, cares. What am I supposed to do? Now? I'll never work in this industry again. Then work in a different industry. Start over. Learn from this mistake and become a better person. It's not that easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy, Jake, but the alternative is giving up.
And
Giving up helps nobody. I stood up to leave. Eve? Yes? Thank you for coming. Get better, Jake. Not for me, not for David, but for yourself. I left the hospital feeling strangely lighter. Revenge, I realized, wasn't just about destroying your enemies. It was about freeing yourself from the power they held over you. But my day wasn't over yet. As I walked to my car, my phone rang. It was Patricia, my lawyer. Eve, I've been going through all your contracts with Westfield. You're going to love this. What did you find? David made a huge mistake. When you filed those patents and trademarks under your personal name, using your own resources, they legally belong to you. But here's the kicker. Westfield has been using your proprietary software in 12 other projects over the past 2 years. My heart skipped. What does that mean? It means they owe you licensing fees retroactively, plus damages for unauthorized use. How much are we talking about? Conservatively, $8 million. Maybe more if we can prove deliberate infringement. I sat in my car, stunned. Patricia, file the lawsuit today. Already drafted. Just need your signature. By the time I signed the papers an hour later, news of the lawsuit had already leaked to the press. My phone was buzzing with calls from reporters. Miss Harris, is it true you're suing Westfield for intellectual property theft? No comment. But my lawyer will have a statement tomorrow. The next morning's headlines were brutal. Westfield executives stole employees' ideas for years, lawsuit claims. But the story was bigger than just one lawsuit. 3 other former Westfield employees had come forward, claiming David had a pattern of stealing ideas and giving credit to his favorites. Eve Harris's courage has inspired us all, said Maria Santos, former head of marketing. David did the same thing to me in 2019. I just never had the proof to fight back. That evening, I was home in time for dinner. Really home, not checking emails or taking calls or working on presentations. Mommy, Emma said, climbing onto my lap, you're home early. Mommy has a new job. One where she gets to be home for dinner every night. Really? Really? Oliver looked up from his homework. Does that mean you can come to my football match on Saturday? I wouldn't miss it for the world. Will you teach me about business? Emma asked. I want to be smart like you. My heart melted. What do you want to know, sweetheart? How do you know if someone is trying to steal your ideas? Such an innocent question, but it cut right to the heart of everything. Well, I said, thinking carefully, if someone takes credit for your work, that's stealing. If someone promises to help you but actually helps themselves instead, that's stealing too. What do you do when someone steals from you? You make sure they can never steal from anyone else again. Emma nodded solemnly, like this was the most important lesson in the world. Maybe it was. Later that night, after the kids were in bed, Tom and I sat on our back porch with a bottle of wine. So, he said, any regrets? About which part? Any of it? The revenge, leaving Westfield, Jake. I thought about it for a long time. I regret that it had to happen at all. I regret that David's insecurity destroyed so many lives. I regret that Jake got caught in the middle. But I don't regret standing up for myself. Good. Tom? Yeah? Do you think I'm a bad person? For what I did to the company? Eve, you didn't destroy that company. David did. You just refused to let him destroy you too. But 37 people lost their jobs. Because of David's choices, not yours. You can't save everyone, love. Sometimes you can only save yourself. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. 3 days later, the industry shakeup was complete. The Financial Tribune ran a follow-up story. The Westfield Collapse: How One Man's Ego Destroyed a Corporate Empire. The article detailed everything: David's pattern of stealing ideas, the lawsuit, the mass exodus of talent, and the complete loss of investor confidence. Sources close to the situation report that at least 6 major clients have terminated their contracts with Westfield, citing concerns about intellectual property management and leadership integrity, the reporter wrote. But the story also highlighted something else: the rise of Horizon Dynamics as the new leader in international trade partnerships. Under the guidance of new partner Eve Harris, Horizon has secured partnerships worth over $600 million in just 1 week. Eve Harris, who was previously unrecognized for her contributions at Westfield, is now being hailed as a visionary in Asian market development. My assistant knocked on my office door that morning with yet another stack of meeting requests. Eve, you have interview requests from Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. Also, the Prime Minister's office called about a trade advisory position. Schedule Harvard Business Review for next week. Tell Forbes I'll consider it. And the Prime Minister's office? That's interesting. Set up a preliminary call. Also, there's someone here to see you, says it's personal. It was my former colleague Maria Santos, the one who had spoken to the press about her own experience with David. Eve, I wanted to thank you personally. After your story came out, I finally had the courage to speak up about what David did to me. I'm glad you found your voice, Maria. I've been offered a position at 3 different companies in the past week. Apparently, people are very interested in hiring David's former victims because they know we're the ones who actually did the work. We laughed together, and for the first time in years I felt like I was part of a community instead of fighting alone. There's something else, Maria said. We're starting a support group for people who've experienced workplace intellectual theft. Would you be interested in speaking at our first meeting? I'd be honored. My phone buzzed with one more message. This one from Mrs. Yamamoto. Miss Harris, the Tokyo office is very pleased with our new partnership. We look forward to working with someone who values integrity as much as profit. Also, we have recommended you to several other investment groups in the region. I smiled and put the phone away. Tomorrow I would start building something new. Something better. Something that belonged to me. But tonight, I was exactly where I needed to be, home with my family. Free from the chains of misplaced loyalty and finally giving myself the credit I deserved. They say the best revenge is living well. I plan to live very well indeed, asterisk.